This woman's name was Elizabeth. 20 years ago, she had been an extremely famous star in Hollywood, possessing a beautiful face and a hot body. Elizabeth easily captured the eyes of all men. Even though she was over 50 years old, she was still a dance model for an aerobics program on TV. However, she could not have imagined that on her 51st birthday, the program's producer had invited Elizabeth to a restaurant. He bluntly fired her. He said that Elizabeth was over 50 now. She was no longer suitable to be a model for his program. He said he now needed someone younger and more beautiful to attract viewers. His blunt words were like needles that stabbed into Elizabeth's heart. On the way driving home, she discovered that her billboard had been taken down. Elizabeth was absent-minded and not paying attention. She was accidentally stabbed by another car that was driving in the opposite direction. Fortunately, her accident was not serious. The doctor, after diagnosing that she had not suffered any serious injuries, agreed to discharge her from the hospital that day. However, she just sat there and sobbed over her unfortunate fate. A nurse saw her and immediately walked over. He put his hand on Elizabeth's back to check the bone marrow and said that she was a suitable subject for the experimental program. After saying that, he also gave Elizabeth back her clothes. When she received clothes, she accidentally discovered a red birthmark on his hand. Elizabeth had just left the hospital when she found a USB in her pocket which had been sent earlier by the nurse. It had the words "miracle drug" written on it, along with a phone number on the back. Elizabeth didn't understand what was going on, but suddenly, a man came up to talk to her. She recognized him as a classmate of hers from high school. When he saw Elizabeth, he was very excited. He said that he had been a big fan of hers and also complimented her for still being as beautiful as before. Elizabeth was very confused after hearing this. Then the man gave her his phone number, hoping that one day he would have dinner with her. Elizabeth appeared happy on the outside, but deep inside, she knew for sure that she never wanted to see this man again. After Elizabeth returned home, she immediately opened the USB to watch. In it, she saw a video recording an experiment about splitting a chicken egg into two. The voice in the video said that this miracle drug could clone your DNA, helping to create a younger and more beautiful version of everyone than the original. 1 week for this person and 1 week for that person. If you followed the process correctly, you would have the body you had always wanted. Elizabeth felt that this was absurd. She did not believe that this drug existed, so she threw the USB into the trash. Then she packed her things to go to the bar to have fun. However, the men there were only interested in young girls. No one cared about Elizabeth. She left dejectedly. While she was drunk, Elizabeth suddenly remembered the USB. She called the phone number on the back and said she wanted to buy the miracle drug from the company. After she paid, Elizabeth received a black envelope. On it was written a series of numbers and addresses provided by the company. Elizabeth then sneaked there alone. This place was like an abandoned neighborhood. After she entered an old house, Elizabeth found a room. She went to the storage compartment with her serial number and took out a cardboard box. Inside was a blue medicine bottle to activate the elixir, 2 bags of liquid food for 2 bodies, a tube to switch the 2 bodies together, and finally a warning that she must always follow the rules. Each body could only function for a maximum of 7 days and must switch to the other body. Elizabeth didn't think at all. She directly took the blue medicine bottle and injected it into her body. Suddenly, Elizabeth felt uncomfortable. Then she fell to the floor. Elizabeth realized that something in her body seemed to be moving. A terrifying sound rang out. Her back slowly tore in half. From inside, a young body stepped out. It was the new version of Elizabeth. After she stabilized her mind, she began to use a needle to sew up the wound on Elizabeth's back. She thought everything was fine, but suddenly, the girl felt dizzy and her nose kept bleeding. It turned out that she had forgotten an important step. During the 7 days of the clone, every day she had to take spinal fluid from the original's bones to maintain its function. After she followed the instructions and extracted a tube of spinal fluid from Elizabeth's back, she injected it into her own body. All her senses quickly stabilized. From that day on, Elizabeth had the beautiful young body she had always wanted. She returned to the TV station to register for the upcoming young model recruitment. With her hot body and beautiful face, Elizabeth was quickly noticed by the producer. She even named herself Sue. The director saw that the girl was a rare talent and asked to sign a contract immediately. Sue suddenly remembered that she could only work alternately with the original, so the girl immediately made an excuse. Every week, she would have to go back to her hometown to take care of her grandmother. She wanted to propose a special contract just for her. The director saw that the girl had potential. Although he was very difficult, he quickly agreed. He also praised the girl for her filial piety, so from that day on, Sue became the exclusive model for the hottest TV show of the year. Her excellent dancing skills amazed everyone. Her face quickly spread everywhere. Time quickly passed 7 days. Sue's body had reached the deadline to transform back to her old body. Sue used a syringe to connect her body to Elizabeth. The girl immediately fell unconscious. Elizabeth then woke up. She found her body extremely sore. It turned out that this was the side effect of the miracle drug. The next day, Elizabeth went to the TV station. The director had already packed her things for her to take back. He also said that he had found an excellent new model. Sue's week was as happy as Elizabeth's week was boring and dull. With each passing day, she became more and more eager to transform this old body. Very quickly, 7 days had passed. Sue woke up once again. She saw the ugly body lying in front of her. She was extremely uncomfortable. Sue then thought of a way to make a hole in the bathroom and create a secret room to hide Elizabeth. However, her vandalism in the apartment was noticed by the neighbor next door. He intended to scold her, but when he saw Sue's beautiful face, he immediately changed his attitude. The girl said that she had just moved in. The neighbor wanted to get to know her. He also said that he would help her fix it. Sue felt that having a beautiful face made the people around her more gentle. Sue enjoyed every minute of the glamorous life, which she had longed for. On the last day, Sue even brought a handsome guy home to do that. But when the two were having sex, suddenly blood flowed from the girl's nose. She was startled and panicked to realize that she was running out of time. However, she did not want to miss out on the fun. Sue broke the rules. She went into the bathroom and took another bottle of bone marrow from Elizabeth's body. Then Sue went out and continued to enjoy the fun. The next day, Elizabeth woke up. She saw the room was messy with food and wine. It seemed that Sue had had a passionate night. However, because Sue broke the rules, Elizabeth's body had to suffer the consequences, which caused one of her fingers to age rapidly. Elizabeth then called the customer service center to request treatment. However, they immediately refused with the reason that 2 people were 2 but 1. The warning was written very clearly. What Sue had done was also Elizabeth's responsibility. She realized that there was nothing more she could do. She had to clean up the battlefield by herself. Then she went to the company's address to pick up the goods periodically. On the way back, Elizabeth stopped at a nearby cafe. There was an old man sitting opposite the cafe. He kept looking at Elizabeth, and he asked if 7 days had been a long time. She didn't understand what the man meant. She suddenly discovered that there was also a red birthmark on his hand. The birthmark was exactly the same as the nurses at the hospital the day before. It turned out that the man had also taken the same medicine as Elizabeth. He warned her that the more she took that medicine, the more lonely she would feel. But that was the only way to maintain her value and prove her existence. Elizabeth hurriedly left the cafe. When she stepped outside, she almost hit a young man on a motorbike. Elizabeth realized that it was the man who had made love to her last night, but now he was cursing and insulting her, which made Elizabeth feel even more worthless. She suddenly remembered the high school friend who had given her his phone number last time. Elizabeth then called him, and she wanted to ask him out for dinner that night. She wanted to prove that she was still attractive. The man was very surprised and quickly made a reservation. Elizabeth then chose her best outfit and carefully put on her makeup in front of the mirror. She even used gloves to cover up her aging marks. However, when the appointment time was almost up and she stepped out the door, Elizabeth saw Sue's poster right in front of her. Her beautiful and youthful face, as if in contrast to her sagging and aging features. Her jealousy arose again. Elizabeth was angry. She canceled the appointment and went back into the house. She washed off all the makeup on her face, then opened the refrigerator and took out some food to fill her sadness. Compared to Elizabeth's boring life, Sue always attracted the attention of others with her graceful dances and beautiful body. That day, when she was performing her choreography in front of the stage, suddenly a strange object protruded from Sue's butt. The director below saw it and asked the camera to review the clip. Sue hurriedly ran into the bathroom. The girl checked and discovered that there was a strange object protruding from her body. The girl tried to push the strange object up to her navel. Then she pulled out a fried chicken leg. Sue woke up with a start. It turned out to be just a nightmare. However, when she walked out of the living room, she found dozens of leftovers lying everywhere. It turned out that in the 7 days, Elizabeth had ordered dozens of leftovers herself and enjoyed it alone. Sue was extremely angry at having to clean up the mess she had created. She called the company's customer service department to scold them. However, the person there only repeated the same words as last time. The 2 of them were 1, so there was no such thing as arbitrariness here. Sue then went to the TV station, only to find that the staff was removing her program nameplate. Sue was worried that she was about to be fired. However, the director said that her program's viewership was increasing too quickly, so he had prepared a special project, a New Year's Eve program with more than 50 million live viewers, and Sue would be the main character. He gave her 3 months to prepare. The girl was extremely happy after hearing it. This was definitely her only chance to become a Hollywood superstar. So in the following days, Sue started practicing like crazy. She no longer cared about her 7-day deadline, but the girl kept asking for more bone marrow from Elizabeth's body to extend the deadline. This caused Elizabeth to find that her body had seriously aged. When she woke up, she looked no different from a 90-year-old woman. Elizabeth was angry and called the company. She asked them to come up with a solution, but the company only said that if she was not satisfied, she could end the experience at any time. Although she was extremely angry, when she heard this sentence, Elizabeth was immediately confused. She did not want Sue to continue to abuse her power, but she also did not want to return to this old and ugly body. Elizabeth then turned on the TV to kill time, but the TV only showed images of Sue dancing. This made Elizabeth extremely jealous. While she was outside and getting a lot of attention, Elizabeth herself had to hide in the house, not daring to look at anyone. She threw food at the TV and cursed continuously. She even pasted newspapers on the glass so she wouldn't have to see Sue's poster. A week later, Sue woke up and saw that the house looked like a garbage dump. The smell of rotten food made the girl extremely angry. Sue decided to drain the spinal fluid from Elizabeth this time so that she would never have to return to her ugly body again. 3 months had passed, and the day of the year-end special was approaching. Sue had prepared everything. That day, she even brought a handsome man home to prepare for sex. However, when she checked the bottles of spinal fluid, Sue found that they were all dry. She immediately called the operator and was told that spinal fluid was a limited substance. If she wanted more of it to be secreted, there was no other way but to transfer it back to the original body. At this time, the consequences of the lack of spinal fluid made Sue feel dizzy and nauseous. The girl immediately used the device to carry out the conversion. The sound in the bathroom reached her lover in the room. He heard it and immediately went to check. When Elizabeth woke up, she looked in the mirror and was horrified. She found that her body had transformed into an old woman, over 100 years old, with wrinkled skin, and her body could no longer stand straight. She immediately closed the door and shouted loudly, asking the young man to leave quickly. The young man heard a strange voice coming from inside the bathroom. He was extremely scared, so he quickly grabbed his things and ran out of the house. As for Elizabeth, the next day she contacted the company and asked them to cancel the trial service. She didn't want this body to suffer any more pain. The company then sent a special solution. If Elizabeth injected it into Sue's body, she would never wake up again. Elizabeth quickly pulled out the syringe and stabbed Sue. However, when she had just injected half of the syringe, she suddenly realized that Sue was the only choice, helping her to increase her self-worth. If she ended it right then, there would be nothing left but an old and ugly body. Thinking of this, Elizabeth quickly pulled the syringe out of her body. Sue then jumped up. Thanks to the side effects of the solution, the two bodies could now see each other. Sue saw the syringe on the floor. Knowing that Elizabeth wanted to kill her, she angrily rushed over. She continuously attacked the old woman. She just kept torturing a person who had no more strength to resist. When she looked back, she had already stopped breathing. That night was the day of the special program. Sue went to the studio but discovered that something was wrong with her body. Her teeth started to fall out. It turned out that this was the consequence of not having an original body. In a panic, the director suddenly brought more sponsors to meet. Sue tried to stay calm and did not dare to say anything. Luckily, at that time, a group of dancers passed by, attracting the attention of the men. The girl quickly ran into the elevator, but she discovered that even her nails and one of her ears were falling out. Sue hurriedly ran home. She used the magic potion to inject into her body. She wanted to produce a new, better version. However, because she was not the original body, what was born was an extremely terrifying deformed body. It had 2 heads and 4 arms. The skin was wrinkled and ugly, looking no different from a monster. Even so, it still wore a beautiful dress. She wore an Elizabeth mask and went to the live broadcast. At that time, a large crowd had gathered to watch the event. Everyone was extremely eager to meet the beautiful model, but what emerged was an extremely terrifying monster. The crowd below screamed in panic and scattered. The monster kept insisting that it was Sue, but no one paid any attention. A few young men rushed forward and attacked it, beating it mercilessly. They then used a knife to cut off the monster's head, but another head sprouted from the wound. The scene became utterly horrifying. Blood was everywhere. The monster tried to stagger toward the avenue of fame, but its body could no longer endure the strain and suddenly exploded into gory fragments. All that remained was a wrinkled piece of flesh. Slowly, the monster crawled toward the star symbol bearing its name. Before it appeared, a vision of thousands of people standing and applauding, a final glory Elizabeth had always longed to witness. Then, everything gradually faded into darkness. The staff later cleaned up the remains, erasing all traces of the woman's tragic end. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. watching, and goodbye, and see you again.